Hello, you all. Hope everything's going well. Following on last lecture on logical proofing your ideas, I wanted to go right into the next step, which is how to develop action. There's a quote you all probably know is that faith without action is dead, and I kind of, made a little bit twist on that, and I use the concept of strategy without action is dead. I really want to emphasize that in the strategy development process and in strategy in general, if you leave out the action, you have nothing. There is nothing worse than having an idea that doesn't get done, even if it's a good idea. And so the action part of your strategy is extremely important. So we're going to look at that today. If you can call up the slides on for lecture 7, so do that please, so we can go over that. And again, just if you look at the first slide, again, this is a process where we go through the strategy process, development process is a process. It goes from your viability of your business, developing goals, generating ideas to attain those goals, and then we looked at last time how you test those ideas and make sure they're logical and can work. And then today, in this next step, we're going to look at how to develop effective action steps. So you'll see this works in a very smooth process, and you're getting where you want to go in right order. Okay, so let's look at the next slide there, action steps. As Shakespeare said, suit the action to the word and the word to the action. You want what you say and what you do should be the same. And so when you do a strategy or recommendation idea, when you say it, it's got to move towards action. Remember, strategy is kind of like it says there, to be likened to a belief, a desire, a plan, a thought process, a state of mind. It's in your head, but you may even write it down. But until if you leave it in your head and don't do it, it doesn't work. Remember how many times you thought of some good thing you're going to do. Maybe you're going to go hang some Christmas lights for a person that can't, unable to get up there, or you're going to go bring some food to these people, or do whatever, and then you don't, or you call somebody because you've heard their tragedy and you don't do it. So it's in your head, but you didn't do it, and so it's worthless. It's meaningless. Good thoughts, good intentions don't have much help. Don't provide much help. You want to follow through. Now, I'm going to say something here on this next slide that I highlighted there. It says, and I just want to read it. You're up against a massive construct comprised of bureaucracy, inertia, conformity, the never-ending search for mediocrity, and a mistaken belief that someone else would do it. This sounds harsh, but I tell you, when you're in business, you are going to fight these things your whole career. You're going to fight against bureaucracy, this immense gunkiness of all corporations, where they have their own rules, regulations, concepts, culture, structures that just gunk things up. They move things and make things move very slowly. Sometimes they're very necessary, but often over time they just become excessive, and so they become very onerous, and it makes it difficult to get things done. You're always going to be here. We don't do that here. We don't do it that way. We've never done it. We can't do it. We don't think that you can come here and do this. You're too young. You're not educated enough. You've not had enough training. You can't do this here. We've never done it. All that sort of stuff. It always happened. It's always there. You have this bureaucracy. So again, it can be justified. It can maybe was justified, but often right now you think, wow, this is really difficult to fight through. It's going to be there. You have to learn to live with it and also push through. You can't be stopped. Then inertia. What does inertia mean? Inertia is a law of physics that an object at rest tends to stay at rest. Think of yourself on the couch watching whatever, downstreaming any kind of video. You're going to stay there until something gets you to move. It may be, hey, pizza's here, whatever. But the thing is that when you're at rest, when something's not moving, it takes a big amount of energy to get it moving. A company's the same way. When things aren't happening, when nobody's moving, when it's stationary and static and just frozen, it takes a huge push to get it going. So often you'll be working in you transfer to a company area, or you'll move into some of the, and not much is going on. To get that going on takes a lot of energy, and also remember, just one little push ain't going to do it. You got to gear up, push, and keep pushing in order to make something happen. Inertia is a big thing in companies. A lot of people have found out, and they've realized that if I don't do all that much, I don't get in trouble. I don't raise my hand, I don't raise my head, I don't do all these kind of things, and then I can slide under the radar and have a very long career here. And they're right, that often does happen. So if you don't want to be that way, you don't want to live like that. So when you try to make things happen, you're going to bump up against a lot of people that rather just stay where they are. And it could be a resistance to change, it can be a resistance, it can be laziness, it can be any number of things. And then conformity. We always talk about, I want to be different. Well, actually, the tendency is people all want to be the same. And so you think, I'm going to wear something really unique and cool, and actually you're wearing a well-defined thing that everybody says is cool because it's whatever definition of what happens to be. People rarely go wear something that's unique, or they do something unique, or they do. So basically, we tend to conform, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but sometimes you have to think, how do we move this when we're dealing with such strong conformity? And often industry would work that way, where everybody does the same kind of thing in the industry, everybody moves along, and people are really afraid of saying, I'm going to step outside because I could fail, I get noticed. And you do get noticed whenever you're a nonconformist. If and a lot of times, but again, people think, I'm an individual. You look around, well, I'm the individual. If I'm just like everybody else, that's not really the case, is it? So the conformity, the intense desire that we as humans have to be like everybody else, is very strong, and it's at work too. So you have to figure out, how do we get around it? How do I break through this desire that I myself will have, and will all have, to not go outside the box? I shouldn't have said that, but to not do something different. Then there's this never-ending search for mediocrity. You think that's not true. Companies on purpose aren't mediocre. Well, I would disagree with you. From my experience with working in companies all my life and consulting to them, there's quite an acceptance of mediocrity. In fact, if you look at almost all companies, they'll have like a bell-shaped curve that they will tell you that our people are like this. We have some really good people, some really bad people, and a whole bunch of kind of good people in the middle. And they'll think that's normal because that's representative of society, or that's what everybody does, or even worse, how can we hire rocket scientists to do this crappy job that we have? That's really not good. Push always to have all your people on the high end of performance. Why not? Why, just don't accept that you have to have a bell curve, or that of people. Go towards the high end of performance. You can do it. It can be done. Where I always like to look when I was managing, whatever team. I like to look around the table and say, what? I wouldn't change one of these people for anyone in the world. I like every single one of them, just who they are, just where they are. I like them exactly like that. Why go for less? Why, if you think, I've got 3 out of my 10 people I really like, and these people, that's ridiculous. Go for the people and the structure and everything that's high end. It's really excellent. Shoot for excellence every single day, and you'll be surprised how often you get there. If you accept mediocrity as built into your, I can't tell you how many times I've seen sales teams where they say, their 80-20 rule in sales is all the time, where 20% of the salespeople give you 80% of your business, is almost almost a given. But then why do you talk to about sales manager? They say, we have a bunch of people that aren't very good. We have some people really good and some people just awful. And why accept that? Well, we don't know anything how to fix it, or we just accept it because it's always been that way. Don't do that. Imagine if you could get 40% of your people, or 50% of people, or 60% of people performing like the top 20, just how you would kill the market. So try to push that, and just don't accept that this business and my people have to be mediocre. And then you have this final thing where this belief someone else would do it. And you've all done that. We've all done that. There's a terrible issue. Somebody must be on that. There's something happening. Well, somebody will take care of it. Probably not. That could be you to fix it. It's rare that you see something like that and somebody actually is on it. And you see that in companies all the time. Well, somebody must be addressing that. Somebody must be looking at that. Someone's maybe taking care of that. And it's often not the case. Anyway, just to go back again. If you can recognize this and realize I'm stepping into something new, a lot of you are going to be in your different career, or you're working already, but you'll step into something different after university, after graduate school. What's it going to be like? I'm going to have to look out for the company's bureaucracy. I'm going to have to fight through inertia. I'm going to have to fight through my own desire and everybody's desire to conform. This acceptance of mediocrity. I want excellence. I want to be, simply the best, that kind of thing. And I'm never going to think that somebody else must be doing that. If I see a problem, maybe no one's addressing it, and that's my way to find a solution and really get ahead in this company and make them better. All right? Okay, now the action steps follow very closely to the logical proofing thing that we did last lecture, and that makes sense because basically what you're doing is saying I've tested my ideas, I've thrown out some, I've kept other ideas. Okay, the ideas that I've kept after they've passed through the logical proofing, I want to make happen. The ideas that didn't, they're gone. Okay, so makes a lot of sense that the action steps follow the logical proofing because you're going to create actions and take steps to implement those ideas, right? Okay, so the principal strategy development, you go through these focus, and there's a few quick things on action. Action is really important. You want to figure out what kind of action you want to take. So you want to do focused action. You want to be really focused and clean, and you don't want to have things of ambiguous, complex, etc. You want it really simple. Go do that. We will do this. Sometimes you'll see companies that we have 47 things we're working on right now. Well, that's not going to get done, is it? You want to figure out how many, the reduced amount of very practical and very meaningful actions you want to take. You want to focus on your key business drivers. You have to understand your business thoroughly and say, what makes my business happen? Like, say you're, again, going back to a sneaker example. Is it the color? Is it the price? Is it the shape? Is it the style? Is it whatever it happens to be? Is that what makes it go? I have to know that. I have to understand that. I have to be sure and aware of which of those factors drive the business. And you hit those. Your action steps should be around the things that drive your business. You'd think that's obvious, but a lot of times people are off on tangents and they're spending a lot of time and effort on doing things that are not related directly to the very things that drive their business. You have to figure out what drives your business and you have to make your actions around that. Focus on high gain activity. 20% of anything gets 80% done. That's Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule. Just because the rule doesn't mean it's right. It's a rule to break. That happens. 20% of anything gets 80% done is almost a rule in business. Every time you step into a new company as a consultant, you'll see right away it happens everywhere. Try to break it. Every time you get a higher percentage of productive people, productive effort, productive allocation or use of resources, you add that much to your bottom line. It makes a huge difference. When you're doing action steps or come up with a plan or strategy or a recommendation, focus on things you can do now with precise steps and measurable results. I always like to think of big, cheap, and now. What can I do? It doesn't cost that much money. It's going to have a big hit, and we can do it right now. You want those easy wins, like they call low-hanging fruit or whatever you want to call it. Fine. Take some successes right away because that'll give you time and show that you know what you're doing and give you time to work on the longer range things. But you really want to do in business, focus on what you can do right now, today. You want to be clear. And the other thing related to that right now is that you want to work with available resources. In my experience, you will often be tempted to say, we're going to do this, but we need the head office to send this, or we're waiting for this, we're waiting for that variation, we're waiting for a new product, we're waiting for that tweak, we're waiting for this analysis, we're waiting for whatever. And that kills you because you cannot often depend on those things that are outside your control from ever happening. When you come up, when I tell people when I work with companies on strategy, I say, let's not worry about action steps that you can't control because if they happen, they happen. But let's work on the things that you can control, you can make happen. Because otherwise you're going to be sitting around waiting for something and it could be a long time. The other thing is, like say, for example, I tell one of you, I want you to figure out how we can grow our residential real estate business in Texas, by in the next couple of years. And you come back after a while and say, I was waiting for the policy memo from head office. I was waiting for some stuff on this. I needed this information. And at the end of the year, I say, hey, you didn't fulfill this goal that you had, and a goal that was set in your objectives. And you say, yeah, but I was waiting. That doesn't sound very good, does it? It never sounds good to say I was waiting, I was thinking, I was hesitant. No, I did it. I went for it. I got it fixed. When I was in consulting, at Price Waterhouse, I remember once we were sitting there with one of the partners, and somebody came in and they said, and he said, well, have you talked to so and so? And he said, no, I found out this morning he took a trip to Los Angeles. Then we were in Miami time, and the guy looked and said, then how come why are you here and not on a plane to Los Angeles? Those excuses don't help. Get there, do it, fix it. And I think and do it with your available resources. Now you want to do the application of companies differentiate, leverage, and power. What makes you different as a company? What makes you unique? Where's your power? Where's your leverage? What do you have to offer, and what can you bring to bear against a situation? That's what you want to use. You don't if your company has a certain technological advantage, use that to reach your objectives and create your action steps, not something that you don't have. And then you want to do build shock absorbers. In all business, there are things, and if you knew what they were, I mean, like for example, we do know that from time to time we have hurricanes here in South Florida, so you need to be prepared for that with offsite things, with backup systems, with working from home situations, or all sorts of things, because that's probably going to happen, and it's going to cost you money. If you don't plan ahead for that and have it ready, then it'll cost you a lot of money. But sometimes there are things you have no idea, like the 2008 financial crisis whacked everybody. I'm not saying you could be prepared for that because it was a gigantic hit, but you have to realize there are business cycles. And if you're in a cycle, and like say that was a real estate related cycle, and you're not ready for a downturn, then that's not good managing, because there are always downturns, there are always upturns. It's just that you have to be sure that you're ready for those things. Something you cannot be ready for, but so you think, well, I just have general reserves in terms of cash allocation and flexibility that I can maybe attach those. Most of the time, at the end of a year in a business, you'll look back and say, man, we never thought that was going to happen, and it did. I'm glad we were ready for it. Or too bad we weren't, right? Okay, now we get to the next page on 6, which is the action steps. Now, this is quite simple, like I said, moving from your logical proofing. Basically, you take the exact same sheet, and you just take out a few columns. You had the ideas. Now, the ideas that made it through the logical proofing process, you stick right there on the left-hand column under specific areas of strategic change. These are the things we're going to do. These are ideas we're going to do because they've turned out to be logical and effective. So then from there, you just say, how are we going to do it? Who's going to do it? And when will it get done? Remember, it already made it through the how do you know it's going to work? And we already went through the what will be the result. So all we really have to do, and we already know why, of course. So all we're really looking at is what is the idea, how are we going to implement it, who's going to do it, and when will we expect it done. Again, it sounds simple, but you've already done the other work before. So basically, this is a focused attention on these specific actions that will get you to where you want to go. Right? Does that make sense? You're going to take that sheet, take out a few columns, put your big idea, now it's going to be, that's past the logical proof, now it's going to be an area of strategic change. And from there, you just need to figure out how we're going to do it, what are the mechanisms, the specific mechanisms for getting that in place, who's going to be in charge, and when will that happen. Remember, who's going to be charged, not who my market is, etc. The person accountable, directly responsible for getting this done. The next, slide is that tool, and again, just to repeat what I said, there's your ideas, there's your detail on how they'll be implemented, and all that. So that's how that works. If you think about it, how logical that works, and how much sense that makes, and if you get a chance to actually do that and use this tool, you'll see it's very nice. It flows very smoothly, and you come out with outstanding action steps that you can take to achieve your goals. All right, hope that works. Thanks a lot.